One of the coolest parts about the music scene is seeing how much it grows, changes, and adapts over time. One of the most influential music scenes of all time might surprise you. It birthed bands such as the Ramones, The Cure, Blink 182, Nirvana, Green Day, and a whole lot more. So, if you haven't already guessed it, this music scene is pop punk. Now, before we get started into this, I want to mention I'm a musician. And with being one, I sort of listen to all sorts of different genres, which I'm sure you do as well. And I think it's so cool to see how all the different genres of music intertwine with one another, and how one main genre can turn into five different subgenres. And that's sort of how pop punk came about. It didn't start there, it sort of started with rock music and just changed and adapted over time and went through this sort of crazy roller coaster to get where it is now. And even then, it's still not done changing, growing, and adapting. Because, like I said, the music scene is constantly doing that. Now, you might recognize some of these popular pop punk bands, like back in the 80s, we had The Cure and the Ramones, and then in the 90s and 2000s, we had Nirvana, Blink 182, and Green Day. And nowadays, it's sort of more female run with people like Olivia Rodrigo, Willow Smith, and then the band called The Regrets. And I love seeing how these young female artists are putting a nice little twist on the pop punk music we've always sort of known. Now, this is going to be a hard one, but if you had to pick the most influential pop punk band of all time, who would you choose? Now, you can think about that for a minute, and I'm going to go ahead and give you my answer. If I had to choose, I would say Nirvana was one of the most influential pop punk bands of all time. Now, they originally started off more punk and then later became a little more pop. And I think the greatest part about that is that throughout the whole process, they kept that angst and the anger that we all love about punk music, but made it a little more relatable and added almost a little bubblegum to it and made it a little lighter so that it would get more radio play and become a more popular genre to listen to. But I think one of the greatest parts about Nirvana and a lot of punk music is how raw and emotional it is. And there's so much angst in there, which is pretty cool. Now, like I said earlier, pop punk originally sprouted from rock music, and it sort of went through a lot of different stages. First there was rock, then there was punk, then there was punk rock, and now there's sort of this punk pop genre. And no matter what, it's kept that sort of angst in there, but especially now with this pop punk, we have the angst, the anger, but sort of made it a little more lighter and more easy to listen to and play on the radio. Now, back in the day, pop punk or punk in general, or even the whole music scene was more male dominated. But I love seeing that over time, things have changed a lot. You know, more female artists are coming about, like the Regrets and Willow Smith, and these ladies are changing the pop genre in a whole new way. They're adding a little more female empowerment and keeping the angst and anger that we all love about punk music. Now, one of my favorite parts about the punk genre is the unpredictability. And I think that's why so many people love going to punk shows, is because you know something crazy is going to happen. Whether it's good or bad, it's all part of the punk experience. Now, back in the day, punk was very underground and not known as well as it is now. So bands like Nirvana helped sort of kick off this genre. They performed these underground shows and it was more punk, but then by the time they got more pop in there, more people were coming, more people were hearing about it, you know, the genres sort of being spread a lot more, and because of the pop being put in with the punk, they were able to get a lot more radio play than they ever were before. Now, I think one of the coolest parts about punk music or pop punk music is how, you know, they are so upright with how they're feeling. They say, you know, I hate the world and I hate living in it. Where a lot of other genres might say something similar, but they're going to sugarcoat it a lot more, put a lot more icing and sprinkles on there, whereas punk music is upfront, honest with you, hits you in the face with how they're feeling, which I really love. Now, overall, pop punk has gone through a lot of different stages. And in the end, no matter how much it's adapted or changed, it still has the unpredictability and the angst, which I absolutely adore about it. Now, I do want to end this with one of my favorite quotes from Nirvana's lead singer, Kurt Cobain. And it's that punk is musical freedom. It's saying and doing and playing what you want. And that's sort of what I love about pop punk music. It's just so universal, so relatable, and so free.